Equivalent ratio word problems. Mrs. Silva orders 5 pizzas for every 20 students who help with campus cleanup. How many pizzas should she order if 36 students help? How many pizzas should she order if 48 students help? Show your work. Our original ratio is 5 pizzas for every 20 students. The first question we need to answer is how many pizzas for 36 students? And the second question we need to answer is how many pizzas does the teacher need to order for 48 students? I'm going to use proportions to help us solve this problem. So I'm going to solve the first question in this first box. I'm going to figure out how many pizzas this teacher needs to order for 36 students using a proportion. I'm going to set up my proportion with the original ratio on the left and solving for the equivalent ratio on the right. I see that they're asking for how many pizzas. That means I need to have pizzas as one of my labels in my proportion. I like to label my numbers in my proportions so that I know what numbers from my ratio that I need. So I know I'm going to need pizzas. So I'm going to label both sides of my proportion in my numerator as pizza. So eventually I'm going to fill in those numbers as the pizza numbers from my ratio. In that first question, they said how many pizzas should she order if 36 students help. So they gave me some information here, this 36 students. So I'm also going to use that in this proportion. This 36 is students. So students will be my other label. Now that I have my proportion set up, I'm ready to go find my numbers. I said I like to use this first fraction in my proportion as the original numbers from the original ratio. Well, going back to the word problem, these are my original numbers from my original ratio right here. 5 pizzas for every 20 students. So that means I have 5 pizzas and 20 students. I'm going to plug that in over here where I labeled pizzas and students. So there's my original ratio. Now I put this 36 by students because they labeled 36 students in the question here. We are also figuring out how many pizzas. So I'm going to put an X there as my unknown number. The next thing I'm going to do is cross multiply. 20 times X is 20X. 5 times 36 is 180. After I cross multiply, I need to divide. I will divide by 20 so that I can solve for X. Whatever I do to one side, I need to do to the other. When I do that, I end up with 9. 9 is the amount of pizzas she needs for 36 students. We're going to solve the second question in this area here, but I'm going to use a proportion to solve it as well. The second question is asking if 48 students help. So I need the same setup with pizza and students, except this time I need to answer for 48 students. All right, so here's our setup. Our original ratio was 5 pizzas for every 20 students from right here. And then we have our X for figuring out how many pizzas we need for 48 students coming from our question. Then I need to cross multiply. So we get 20 times X is 20X, and 5 times 48 is 240. After we cross multiply, we divide to get X by itself to solve to figure out how many pizzas. So X equals 12 pizzas for 48 students.